Hi, Keith.
Hi, Alan. How you doing?
I'm good, thanks. You okay?
I'm okay.
Good, good. Looking forward to this interesting and exciting session on MTD for IPSA.
I didn't even know what the session was for.
That hasn't turned you. That doesn't turn you off. You're gonna hit the button now. I'm going now.
I'll hang around for a while.
Brilliant, great, thank you.
See my friend Iffan on screen.
Excellent. Hi, for now.
Hi. Hi, Keith. How lovely to see you after all this time.
And you.
So do you both know each other then, by the sounds of it?
Yes.
Okay. You're local to each other, or is just
No, just long-time AVMers.
Okay.
Yes, we've met when we used to go to Birmingham and places like that.
Yes.
NEC.
Yeah.
Conferences, yeah. Various places like that.
Great. Okay. So how are you both doing? Are you keeping busy at the moment?
Hectically.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's that odd sort of feeling of sometimes you think, oh, it's typical small business, really. You're busy and you think you wish it was quiet. And when it goes quieter, you think you was busy.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I know you all ready for the next budget on Thursday for whatever that may or may not bring.
Yes. The assault rifle has been taken out, obviously serviced and cleaned.
Yeah, definitely.
Basically, it's going to be Armageddon.
Yes.
I was going to wait till the week after, Alan, and find out what's still left.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. Yeah, there'll be the actual budget, and then the reversal budget, and then the real budget of the following week. Yeah.
We've given up on U-turns. We're using roundabouts now.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Well,
yeah, it's only £5 a go as well.
Oh. Yeah, definitely. Well, hi, Giles. I think Giles has joined as well. Feel free to unmute and turn your camera on if you want to join in. There's a bit of a flurry of people coming into the group, so I'll get started in a few minutes.
Young Mr. Carey as well.
Yes, Stephen's there as well now. Hi, Robert. You're on mute, so if you want to, feel free to unmute yourself, Robert, if you want to.
That's better.
How are you?
Very well, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good. Okay, so I think that seems to have settled now for people coming on. Obviously, people may join as we're going through, but just to make a start on the session today, or just as I say that, there's someone else joining in the room. So today's session, as you may have seen on the email that went out yesterday and on today, is just an update session really on making tax digital for income tax. So it's not necessarily an update in terms of any kind of rules as such, because obviously there's not a huge amount that's changed on that basis from when the sort of during this last few months. But it's really just to try and talk through with you guys what you're already doing, or what you're not doing, what's working well, what isn't, and sort of trying to share best practice. There's a few resources that we've got at AVM that we put together to help members. So I'll just share those with you so you know where those are if you haven't sort of located them as yet. And also I'll be sort of referring back to the tax calc brochure, which again, there's a link to that within System Builder, but that's quite a nice sort of way that they've put that together, really, that we think, and we've sort of got their permission to be able to sort of share that with our members as a bit of a guide, really, from an MTD point of view. So probably start really if anyone wants to sort of share where they're up to, what they have or haven't done as yet. If it is something that's on the radar as such at the moment, or whether it's something you're waiting until after Thursday to see if it's still here or not. But whether there's anything that you have or haven't done, it'd be great to hear any sort of stories of what if you have done something what's worked really well, or similarly, if you've not quite started yet, why perhaps you haven't, if there's anything that you're perhaps worried about or a bit more concerned about. Just be good to get some ideas. So feel free to. I know Stephen's got an issue with the camera, so feel free to unmute yourself, Stephen, if you want to share anything. But yeah, just unmute, and yeah, any thoughts would be fantastic. Keith, you're unmuted, so I don't know whether you want to go first or not.
What have I done so far? Not an awful lot, to be honest. I've reviewed my clients to see who it might impact. Where I'm seeing those particular clients, I'm mentioning it to them and scaring the hell out of them.
Yeah.
I'm mentioning, I don't suppose you fancy a 5 times increase in fees.
And what's been the feedback so far from clients? Have you found they're aware of it in the first place, or is it a bit of a surprise to them as well?
No, I've come across no one who I've spoken to so far who was previously aware of it.
Yeah. Okay.
And
yeah,
a
that's probably
couple who actually thought I was totally joking. It's they know I've got a wicked sense of humour anyway.
Yeah.
Not quite
one of them accountant jokes again.
That accountant is a joke. Yeah. No, it's something that's HMRC is saying they're advertising, but they only seem to be letting the accountants know at the moment.
Yeah.
No doubt we'll see a wonderful TV advert very soon.
Yeah, it does seem to be one where, I mean, it happens a lot, doesn't it? The revenue expect the accountant and the advisor to be the person to actually make business owners aware of these things.
News.
Yeah, break the bad news, exactly. I think there's an opportunity there perhaps for us to position it in a different way than perhaps if we wait and let the revenue do it. Chances are they'll make it sound as a simple, straightforward process. Yeah. That's something that very easily they can do themselves, and that might not be the answer, might not be the right solution, or actually the case for lots of people that are going to be involved in this from an MTD point of view. Anyone else had any experience so far of Shailene, I think you've got your hand up there, so if you want to share your experience.
So there's 2 parts to it. Number one, so as far as we're concerned, we sent a mail shot out to clients saying, look, this is coming, talk to us because it's affecting you, like basis period changes, etc. We know the clients that are affected, but none of them have been forward-coming to say, right, let's talk about this. I think there is within the business owners community, they feel like HMRC are just going to postpone it. So what's the point of looking at it?
Okay.
Again, but interestingly, internally we've got 2 areas of concern. Number one is how the hell are we going to cope with the demand?
Yeah.
In these things quarterly. But number 2 is what sort of software or what's the workflow going to look like?
Okay.
And just a bit of background, we do about 1,000 tax returns a year.
Okay.
And a lot of our clients are accidental landlords that, they've got 2 properties, just a simple tax return. And then we've got the sort of sole traders who are unfortunately cannot incorporate because the way the NHS contracts are with them.
Okay.
I was talking to a couple of estate agents and, sort of trying to say, look, get us in, let us talk to your clients and just to educate them on this is coming. And they've turned around and said, nah, the way we see it, we're going to end up becoming or having an in-house accounting team because the so-called softwares that they use are going to be able to do it. And what we do is possibly increase our management fee from 10 to 12% and capture that.
Okay. And anyone else sort of hearing that at the moment from maybe estate agents? Yeah. Okay.
Not hearing that, but been talking, like Keith, been talking to people, and it's a case of, oh God, not this. So it's not exactly on the go there. But I don't know if anyone has seen the Office of Tax Simplifications publication, which came out earlier this month, about the practical issues which they highlight. Bear with. I'll read it. On a practical level, all MTD for income tax filings made by agents have to be done through an agency's service account. Well, we know that. The agent services account, however, only enables one agent to act for a taxpayer for the Making Tax Digital for Income Tax service at any one time. It is not currently possible to have two different agents, for example, a bookkeeper filing quarterly updates and a tax advisor filing the end of period statement and final declaration, filing under the same service for the taxpayer. HMRC is aware of this issue, but does not have any plans to allow multiple agent filing and authorization, which Office of Tax Simplification says should be a priority. So that's exciting, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen?
Yeah, definitely.
On top of everything else, there's also potentially this other issue.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think with that one, then I'd heard that about the one agent thing. I think it'll work around there potentially if until they do maybe change the ability to have more than one agent.
Yeah,
it's probably going to be for the bookkeeper to share the login details for the business owner, in effect. So almost filing things on the business owner's behalf, and then the accountant effectively remains as the agent. Whether that's possible or not in all cases, because whether the business owner is going to allow that is another matter, but that's possibly the only way to maybe try to make that work as it stands.
Yeah.
Obviously we've got almost over 18 months, haven't we, until the first one actually needs to be kind of the button pressed. So hopefully they will take action on that report by then. But that's a consideration. It probably links back to what Eileen's just said then about kind of the workflow and what sort of technology you do or don't use, because again, if that has to be built into it in some way, that even if there is a bookkeeper in place and they do all of the entries, but you as the agent still has to press the button to do the submission, that still is something that needs to be built in, has to be diarised, and has to be charged for, I suppose, ultimately as well. So that's the points to note on those, I think.
Yeah, well, that's what I have. Just excuse me in that as well.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. Anyone else had any experience so far of speaking to clients or what they've started to do in terms of their own sort of process and towards MTD for income tax?
I've just mentioned it to my clients in passing so far, and some people are sort of aware there's something going on. Most people don't have a clue. They're all pretty shocked at what's going to be happening with it. The ones that I have mentioned it to. And to be frank, how we're going to get all the stuff in on time 4 times a year. Yeah. I don't really know what they're thinking. I'm personally hoping it's all going to go away, or that the revenue put a sensible de minimis on it. But I think it will require the revenue to be in a total state of collapse before that happens.
Yeah, it does seem to be something that they've kind of, obviously a lot of things they've announced in the past that they've put back and they've not necessarily delivered when they said they would. I think this one they seem to want to kind of do it as disclosed, as opposed to delaying it any further. But again, we'll wait and see what comes out of Thursday. Everything may or may not change at that point. In terms of what you said then, Robert, is it interesting that you mentioned then about kind of workload and which again is sort of demand points that's come up a couple of times really. In terms of your kind of own practices, has everyone sort of started to sort of segment their clients and identify the clients where they are going to be captured and effectively be needing to do something for MTD for ITSA? Has that been something that, as an exercise, you've started to do at the moment?
I have to say, I've not done a great deal towards all of this yet. And as I say, I'm hoping that it will go away, but I doubt that's going to happen. How we're going to manage with this, I do not know, to be quite honest. It's either going to be a case of culling clients or naturally letting them fall off the cliff when you put your prices up. It's just going to be a complete nightmare to manage it. I mean, even my sister, who's also has her own practice, who's younger than me by about 2.5 years. She's said she's going to retire when all this comes into play. And I suspect there's going to be an awful lot of accountants in the country who'll do exactly the same sort of thing. So how the work is going to get done with a fraction of the number of accountants and 4 times as much work, I do not know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely. It is going to be an interesting period, and like you say, that there may well be certainly a shortage, which is obviously presents itself as an opportunity for some firms if they want to potentially gear up and have the workflows and the systems and the processes in place to take on the additional workload that other firms may not be interested in doing or want to do. There's a potential opportunity there, I think, for that to be something to be considered. In terms of the people on the call, is there anyone that's looked at the resource in System Builder at the moment with regards to making tax digital? Has anyone sort of looked at that, or are they aware of that being there as something for you to kind of look at least, and kind of give you a bit of a guide in terms of what sort of actions you might want to look at, certainly at this point, to do things like segment your database and look at which clients might be affected? Has anyone been through that as yet, or would it be useful if I shared that with you so you can sort of see what resources are available and what the sort of actions and suggested steps are?
I think if you shared it today, because Systems Build, well, we've got no apps today, because of security updates. But on that score, I did get stuff from TaxCalc directly, so I've read that. And then you also mentioned previously that we're sharing the TaxCalc stuff, so I hadn't had a specific look. Okay.
Well, what I'll do is I'll just share my screen and go into the resource as it is in System Builder, just for you so you're aware of what's in there. So hopefully you can see that in front of me on the screen. So there's a couple of different resource links that we've got as part of this. So we've got an overall sort of resource that AVN have put together to go through a few different stages within the MTD aspect. There's also then the link there, shortcut to the actual TaxCalc brochure, which I mentioned at the start of the call, which I think that might be what you've certainly maybe something you've looked at with them. TaxCalc that's a really useful brochure, so if anyone hasn't had a scan through that, I'd definitely recommend doing that for you. It's got a timeline as well in the first couple of pages, and that effectively, I'll just show you how that kind of looks on there. The timeline is on the next page here, so it effectively tries to break down when you might want to do certain tasks with the numbering linked back to the sections at the bottom, and then each of the sections has got some pages written about it in the actual brochure itself. So it's really, I think, quite useful to kind of work your way through that as a sort of start point, just to give you a bit of a flavour, I suppose, as to what that might look like. I say AVN have put together some resources as well, which is in this first tab, which is the Word file here. So what it looks at is the key points, key actions that you may want to do, what you might want to do in particular to do any larger clients, a timeline that you might want to look at in terms of when things may want to look at things, communication with clients and how you might want to communicate, what your internal systems might look like, pricing, which is I think an interesting one generally with this topic as to how are we going to price for this service, what's going to be the best approach for this. So we can maybe share a few ideas on that as well during this webinar. And then there's a few appendices as well, so there's a suggested letter that can go to clients for those clients where MTD doesn't affect them, because again, what you probably want to avoid is not speaking to someone because it doesn't affect them, and then they speak to some of their friends or their business associates and they get told what's happening with this, or you're not doing this, and they get worried. So again, there's a letter there to say it doesn't affect them. There's a letter to say it does affect you, but we don't really want to you're not really the right type of client for us, perhaps, and maybe you might want to look elsewhere for that help. And then there's a letter where actually, yeah, it does affect them, and you want to be able to work with them as well. So the first section there is just some shortcuts to some links to MTD, just for the HMRC website, so you can just keep up to date with how that may or may not change. So things like how you register your business for Making Tax Digital, an overview of Making Tax Digital, and checking if businesses are eligible for income tax, Making Tax Digital for income tax as well. Just from that point of view as well, obviously the start date at the moment for this is April 2024. So the eligibility will be based on income reported on self-assessment returns for 5th of April 23. So that's kind of the qualifying year, if that's the right phrase to use. So if in that year, either for the full year, if they've been trading for the full year, or if on a pro-rated basis, they go above those thresholds of the 10,000, they would effectively then be needing to do MTD for income tax from the 6th of April 2024. From that point onwards, in effect, it's a 12-month lag. So if you go over it in a tax year, you have to then register for Making Tax Digital the following April. So it's not a kind of a constant tracking of it and registering partway through a tax year. It is something that's kind of on a little bit of a lag, which hopefully helps for future. But obviously the key points there, just in terms of the income thresholds, what that might mean in terms of the number of tax returns. Obviously, it's separate for property and self-assessment in terms of a trade. So if they do happen to have, accidental landlords, I think is the phrase that's been used by a few people today. So if there are anyone that's landlords and they're also a sole trader, and they happen to either both be above 10 or collectively above 10, then they need to do those reports on a quarterly basis. Key actions from an AVN perspective are things that we would definitely suggest. Obviously, one of them is something that we kind of would suggest you do anyway, in terms of segmenting or grading your clients anyway, but effectively now being more specific on that segmentation and seeing which ones of these clients are specifically going to be impacted from MTD for income tax from April moving forward, April 24 onwards. So obviously those are the ones, the landlords, the sole traders, and really just understanding what that impact is going to have then on your demands, your workflows, and everything else then that you've got to go alongside that. That links into then deciding on your strategy. So it might be that once you've done that segmentation, you might find that actually you've only got a very small number of clients that actually are going to be impacted by this. Maybe you don't have a very large number of sole traders. Maybe you do only have a couple of property clients. Maybe consider, is it worth either passing them on to someone else or partnering with someone else to see is there a solution that you can come up to help deal with those clients rather than taking on that responsibility for those clients. If you do have a small number of clients and you feel like, yeah, it is something we want to do, then you could then put in place a process and a system and the softwares and the technology stack, if you like, that you want to use for those. And if you have got a large number of clients, the 1,000 tax returns that Shailene just mentioned earlier, it would be a case of then understanding what's that impact going to be. What level of workload is that going to sort of fall onto the practice? Do you need to look at a solution like outsourcing or offshoring to help with that workload, particularly given that these are fixed quarters? So it's not something that you can kind of spread out within the year like you can do with VAT returns and other things currently. The MTD for it is effectively calendar quarters, but obviously linked to the 5th of the month rather than the end of the month as such. So again, might be you've got to work out that pipeline, see when that work's going to fall. How does that impact on all the work that you've already got that you need to do in those particular months already? Very popular to have March year ends, even December year ends for companies. Very popular then to have March, June, September, December VAT returns. So as well as the fact of what this means for MTD for ITSA, there's a knock-on effect of what does that mean then for other workload that we've already got with clients in place, and things like the VAT returns, etc., that we need to do for those. Larger clients as an action plan. So again, if it's relevant, you might want to look at whether incorporation is now something to revisit. That might also be something to revisit after Thursday, depending on what is announced as part of the autumn statement. So again, that might be this might be a good time to have that conversation with clients as we're doing their tax returns for this current year, for the payments at the end of January. Discuss with them about whether actually it's going to be cheaper overall or less stressful for them to maybe look at being limited, because the differential between a limited company set of accounts and a MTD Fritzer sole trader, if they're a relatively large size, may not be as big a barrier perhaps as it might have been in the past in some cases. Hammock, I'm not sure if anyone saw that demo that we did on the last update that we did for MTD 3 months ago. We had a presentation on that from a company called Hammock, and they specialize in landlord account software. So it's going to be ready for work for MTD Fritzer. So there's going to be the ability for them to be able to submit those quarterly returns. Hammock is really good actually in the sense of it provides a link through to things like Zoopla and Google Maps. So actually, rather than it just being a bookkeeping package, it gives the property owner what their portfolio is worth, because it gives them the market value from Zoopla, gives them a picture because it's on Google Maps, so it gives them actually a picture of the property. You can set up reminders on when things like gas safety certificates or electric certificates might need doing. You can upload copies of leases and rental agreements, those types of things. So actually, it's quite a nice platform, I think, that's actually got a real benefit and added value to the landlord clients, as well as it ticking a box from an MTD for its perspective as well. So that definitely is something, if you haven't looked at that, have a look back on the recording from the last time we did the update, or drop me a message and I'm happy to share any details I've got about Hammock as well. Other things you might want to do in terms of this is effectively running some webinars or sessions yourself. Hammock, again, if you were to look at that, Hammock do a lot of this as part of their sort of onboarding process. So they can help to present a webinar to landlords as a specific one, perhaps. Or you might want to present something to your clients around what MTD for income tax is, what that means they might need to do, what your suggested solution is from a technology point of view, from a software and a systems point of view. So again, that could be something to think about, just to help to minimize the time it takes you to share that, rather than having to have that conversation 1,000 times with 1,000 clients. Maybe do that over a period of a few different webinars or a few different sessions over the next few months. One other thing as well, which again, speaking to other accountants, they've sort of suggested might be a simple first step for a lot of these businesses that are going to be caught, is advising them to get themselves a separate business bank account, so that when MTD for it to starts and they have to link up that bank feed to an electronic bookkeeping package, hopefully it'll be far simpler for them or you, if you decide to do that for them, in terms of a bookkeeping and submission point of view, to identify which bits are business related, which bits aren't. Because I know from our experience of dealing with particularly landlords and certainly small sole traders, self-employed individuals, they'll tend to just have an account where everything goes through it, and it's you almost spend more time analysing the stuff that isn't needed as opposed to analysing the stuff that is. So them just separating out and having a separate bank account, I think, is a real good step for those clients once you've identified which ones are going to be impacted by MTD Fritzer. You may want to engage with the software providers that you already use. So if you're already using Xero or QuickBooks or Free Agents or Dex, Store to Entry, HubDoc, whatever that might well be, and try and understand what their solutions are, what their suggestions are from an MTD Fritzer perspective. And if that's something that works for you within your business and you think is going to work for your clients, try and get that structure, that sort of solution, if you like, in place. I think from an app and technology point of view, I think that's going to be a real benefit to have that in place. Potentially sooner rather than later, so you can then set up your workflows and your processes and your systems around that then. I think there will be some bridging software. So if there is I think there will be that ability to either directly through HMRC's website or some other way of getting data into MTD Fritza. But I think for me, if it was certainly for the clients we're going to be offering the service to, we would have a sort of preferred solution that we would use rather than having 3 or 4 different ways that we did MTD Fritza for clients. So probably for us, it'll probably be Hammock for landlord clients, and maybe Zero, because that's what we already use, but Zero for self-employed trades and small businesses. I'm definitely looking at the incorporation route for the larger ones. Mentioned before about MTD returns, so they're all going to be 5th of April, 5th of July, 5th of October, 5th of January in terms of the cut-offs. So it might be that while I choose dates, there may well be a conversation to be had with larger clients where you do the maybe management accounts or bookkeeping or VAT returns for, that also have those quarter ends, to see if they may, there may be a benefit for them to change to different year end or a different quarter end for those reports. Purely because then you can hopefully then try and spread out that workload a little bit more as well. But again, that probably links back to understanding how many clients are going to be impacted by this in the first place, and then seeing whether you can manage that workload either outsourced or offshored, or as I say, by maybe changing year ends for clients as well. I suppose the challenge, if we all decide we're going to offshore and outsource this work, there's a who gets to those providers first may have that sort of early dibs almost in terms of the priority for workload as well. So again, it might be worth starting to have a conversation with outsourcing or offshore partners if you think that is going to be part of your solution, so you can secure that resource rather than trying to find something in the last few months before MTD comes into force. If this is going to affect a large number of clients, you might want to set up a dedicated MTD team, or create that out. They may manage that outsourcing capacity, or that you might want to set up a whole new outsourcing department. Maybe speak to the outsource providers if that's the route, and see do they have an MTD team already in place, or is that something they're working to, and share their resource in that respect. And then lastly, pricing. So it's just one line on there, it's one word, but it's probably one of the biggest topics I think for lots of accountants and business owners as part of this is how do we price it? How are we going to price it? For me, I think probably rather than maybe overcomplicating it, maybe trying to reinvent everything that we already do, whether we liken it to just normal bookkeeping, the way that we would normally price a bookkeeping job, whether it be for a normal bookkeeping client, whether that's on number of transactions, or whether it's based on what services they want from us, whether they need us to raise sales invoices, or what level of involvement they want from us. And similar then for the actual quarterly reports, if they want us to do those, we're probably thinking that we'll probably link that to a similar price to what we charge for VAT returns. And again, we charge more for a VAT return if we haven't done the bookkeeping, because obviously there's a lot more that we need to check compared to if we've done the bookkeeping, then the fee we charge for the actual submission of the VAT return is less, because we've already done the work in the first instance. So that might be something just as a start point for people to think about from a pricing point of view. Unless has anyone got any other ideas or thoughts on that, or how they're thinking of trying to price for this work at all?
I'd like to price it as 4 times as much, but I don't think it's going to happen like that.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose there's an interesting one there actually in the tax help brochure that might link to that, Robert, because I think as accountants, I think one of the words we dislike the most is no. So we don't like to present a fee to a client and then to not accept it or not like it, or kind of So, but I think we almost need to now be appreciative of, well, that's our process. That's what it will cost if you need us to do it. If you want us to do it, that's the cost. If you don't want to pay that price, a bit, back to the whole times up process that we've already got. Which bits do you want to do then? Which bits do you want to take out? So then we can, we're not going to be able to keep it at the same price. It's not going to be just the normal tax return price regardless, because I think there is going to be still a more monitoring, if nothing else, of this process for a lot of clients. But if they want to do the quarterly submissions, if they want to do the quarterly bookkeeping themselves, and then perhaps you just do the annual review and then the annual tax return as normal, I think there's packages or tiers of prices that perhaps might be something that we definitely need to use far more than perhaps we have in the past. I think certainly in tax, we've tended to, certainly from our point of view, we've always tended to have maybe a very simple kind of approach to tax affairs for lots of clients. With MTD Fritzer, I think we're going to have to just evolve that slightly, so that we can take account of the different things that the business owners are going to want and need. And anyone else had any thoughts on the pricing side of it at all?
I guess the main thing, Alan, is assess how much work's involved first.
Yeah.
Until we know how much we really need to do.
Yeah.
It's difficult to set a fair price.
Yeah, it definitely is. Yeah, and I think obviously, hopefully, in the first instance, identifying whether by doing this first bit of segmenting and deciding whether it is actually something you want to do in the first place. I suppose that's the key thing, because you might decide, for the 5 clients, 10 clients that this is going to be impacted on, I don't want that to have a negative impact on the big clients that we do the quarterly stuff for. So actually, to protect that income and my sanity, I'd rather kind of do the middle letter of the appendix that says, MTD is going to affect you, but unfortunately, this is something we can support you with. So that might be the option there. But yeah, definitely, I think, Keith, as you say, understanding exactly what is or isn't going to be needed. And I think that's where we struggle a little bit at the minute, because the process with MTD for Fritzer isn't necessarily clear yet, from how it's going to operate, as Ivan shared, with whether there's going to be more than one agent allowed or not. Silly things like that at the moment just makes it quite difficult to be too sort of concrete in those prices. But I think just having a sort of a best approach, or start to think about the approach of how we're going to price, is probably something to think about, because as we have the conversations with people and start to tell them this is going to apply to you, we probably also want to just try and give them an indication at that point. If we did it and we did it all for you, our fee is going to be X, or around, or in this range, or maybe we have to caveat it a little bit. And for landlords, it might be based on a per property fee, or it might be based on a per transaction or per invoice. Something as simple as that, and link that through with Go Cardless, and the fee may vary, quarterly, or certainly at the end of each year to be reviewed. But yeah, definitely, it's not a one size fits all approach, I don't think. There's some suggestions that we've got a little bit further through on here. So we've got communications, as I say, with clients, within the appendix of this system. So there's one that says doesn't affect you, but don't worry about it. We've assessed it. Small clients, so that they're all here. So I'll get them in a second. You may need to update your internal systems and processes to see how you're going to do these things, what that looks like in terms of a checklist or process for dealing with these things moving forwards. Prices. So a way of dealing with this within Time's Up, within this is to potentially create a new section within Time's Up for property income and expenditure accounts. You could maybe do a different business type for landlords and holiday lets, and again then change the wording for it, so that when you actually are potentially pitching for this or presenting this to clients, you're positioning yourself as someone who specializes in doing this type of work for those types of clients. You would then potentially set up different new additional turnover ranges for that particular type of business, to break it down into the brackets, and obviously suggested brackets on the screen, with multiples and price modifiers, similar to how it works with sort of normal. incorporated or larger businesses based on the quality of records. So the more they do, the better the records, the bigger the discount in effect that's applied. You won't see that on screen, I'm sure. If you do, you've definitely been to Specsavers or Vision Express or something. So, but that's just a sort of an example of the option screen in there. And yeah, you could offer the different licenses and whether you want to do the quarterly returns. I think one thing as well there from my point of view, the opportunity there is one thing that this maybe links to for clients with MTD Fritzer is the personal balance sheet. Because if you're already kind of managing, particularly for landlords, a lot of the stuff here to do with their properties and what the property's worth, and as an added value that you might want to do for certain clients is then doing that personal balance sheet if you don't already on an annual, or whether you'd want to do it quarterly, but certainly on an annual basis. And again, that might just be something else that adds some value to the right type of clients that you want to be working with as part of this process. Link there to the furnished letting rules for anyone that's relevant to. And then within the appendix, as I say, the letters, suggested letters that are in this resource. So if it doesn't affect you, so this is just for people who almost to reassure them, to say you've probably heard a lot of noise about this. Don't worry, you don't fall under this at the moment, but we'll carry on to monitor this. If you do want to speak to us, let us know, or if you've got anyone else that it applies to. Second one is it does affect you, but obviously you don't want to put that subject line perhaps in the email. But it does affect you, but you don't wish to work with them because maybe they're already difficult to bring information in. Maybe they already struggle to bring stuff in once a year for the tax return. To try and do that quarterly moving forward, it's probably just going to be more of a headache and more hassle perhaps than it might be worth. So this sort of tries to position it. Yes, it is irrelevant when it comes into play, but unfortunately we do not have the in-house capacity, and you could change that phrase if you want, or that sentence, but in this case we do not have the in-house capacity to support you at the present time, so I suggest that you contact to see if they can help you. Obviously if you do have someone that you can signpost people to, brilliant, you can put their details in there. And as I say, there may well be lots of firms out there, lots of businesses that do maybe want this type of work. So again, that might be something to try and see if the
hello, Claire. Claire, I'm just on a conference call at the moment. So
yeah, so that might just be something to bear in mind on that one for the best, the best solution. And again, if there's anyone in your local town, local area that doesn't even necessarily have to be local, I suppose, but anyone that does specialise in property, landlords, small self-employed businesses, might be worth trying to put a partnership in place with them perhaps to deal with some of them. And then this last one is then MTD does affect you and we want to work with them. So this one then looks at options for this. So it might be that you're putting on these webinars, so you can put when the next date and time of that is, so they can come on and just see what MTD is and how it will work. Second option from that is you've set aside a day, and then you might just have a blanket day, next Thursday or the Friday after, and people can block out 20 minutes or so in your diary to have a one-to-one conversation with you about it. Or you might think from that, by looking at the segmentation of who it's gone to, that you believe actually incorporating their business might be the right thing for them to do. So again, there's that as an option there as well. And then again, just as a sort of a standard information shot, I suppose, or e-shot to effectively put at the end of each letter or email or anything that you're sending out to people, is just to kind of continually just make them aware of this, so that it can't be a surprise to anyone as and when you do have a conversation with them in a bit more detail, or as and when it does happen, that you've made them aware of what the MTD Fritzer implications are and what that might mean for them or other people that they might know. So that's the resource that AVN have put together. So just wanted to sort of share that and go through that with everyone so that you were aware what was there and what was included, and hopefully that's something that can be used by yourselves to help to plan for MTD for ITSA. Definitely look at the tax calc brochure as well, download that. So I think that's a really useful resource as well. And do look at to sort of technology and the software solutions to see if what you've already got will work, fantastic. But if there's certain gaps in terms of what you already have in place for that digital kind of journey that clients are going to need to go on as part of this process, maybe look at where those gaps are and see which solutions might be appropriate to plug them. Might be Hammock, it might be Dext, it might be auto entry. You know, there's the lots of software out there, but I think it's just trying to make sure that you've effectively got that process and that workflow and how that technology journey is going to work for each client and each type of client. I think is key. So hopefully that was useful to go through that with you. Is there any comments or any questions or any of that from anyone at the moment?
Alan, you were saying Hammock.
Yes.
I use Hammock at the moment. I was under the impression that currently you can't file anything direct from Hammock.
Yes, that's correct.
So,
yeah, currently you can't, but from when MTD for ITSA comes into play, there will be the ability to be able to file directly through Hammock. Yeah, that's what they're working to. That's what they've said. The software will be sort of capable of doing. But yeah, at the moment it's more a property management solution, I suppose, as opposed to a reporting thing, because it's always been part of a tax return as opposed to a sort of section of it.
That was my concern. They would have to add, if you're going to file the full tax return through there,
yeah,
they've got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if it'll be the whole tax return through there or just the property elements of that MTD for ITSA that would be submitted through Hammock. So it may well be then that if you've got someone who's got self-employment and property, that you're going to have to do them as sort of almost separate submissions anyway. But whether they would need to be done in Xero or QuickBooks or whichever you were using for the self-employed process, if you like, and then a separate submission potentially through Hammock. I do know a number of clients that have always and do use Xero anyway for property clients. So in that case, you know, there will be effectively both information, if there's a sole trader and a property, would be at least in the same software platform. But yeah, I think that's almost how they're kind of thinking how the mechanics are going to work moving forwards, and that's why it's hard to price with definitively at the minute, I think, because if you're going to have to submit a return through one piece of software and then submit through a different one, and then probably check on HMRC that they've both gone to the right place and the right taxpayer, there's an element of additional checking and work there that there isn't necessarily with normal tax returns or normal VAT returns either.
Yeah, I've got clients with both Hammock and Xero because I've got another business.
Yeah,
and we tend to pull all the information through into KPM.
Okay. Yeah.
And then file from there.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from a KPM point of view as well, obviously we use KPM. KPM have said they're working on something for landlords specifically. So when exactly that'll be available, I'm not too sure, but I spoke to them a week or so ago, and they did say they were looking at a specific kind of solution for MTD for ITSA for landlords and sort of small self-employed individuals. So there might be another solution. I know free agents have got quite a good solution for landlords as well, but yeah, there's probably going to be a few more that pop out of the woodwork over the next few months as software solutions and tech solutions for that.
Hi, Alan, can I just ask you, just something that was maybe it's the way it was worded on the letter that we were just sharing. Yeah. Am I right in understanding that as long as the client is MTD, that it is mandatory that digital records are kept?
Yeah, well, there's a digital submission, and I think there has to be the digital link is always the phrase, isn't it, that's used with regards to certainly MTD for VAT as well. So there has to be a digital link from the core record into the software. So that might be bank feed for certain information. Obviously, it could be electronic for receipts and invoice keeping for clients as well. But yeah, it's effectively a digital journey, and a digital link, I suppose, is probably the better way to maybe think about that process. Yeah,
all right, okay. I think I was focusing more on the actual paperwork and how it was actually kept by the client. Right.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, obviously, from a streamlined point of view, for them and for you, if you decide to help them with it, obviously, the more that can be done electronically, the better. Anyway. Yeah. So again, it's trying to get the clients into the discipline of either scanning and uploading it themselves into something like Auto Entry or Dext or HubDoc or something, or at least sharing it into a shared folder for you to use if it's something you do for them instead. Then Rose, you can effectively capture it and you can drag and drop it up to the likes of Auto Entry or Receipt Bank. Yeah, so I think digital records and digital evidence, if you like it, the more digitalized it can be, I think the better, really. And obviously the more efficient the process then would hopefully work as well.
I would agree with that, Alan, although the Inland Revenue's cost assessment specifically mentions the additional cost of bridging software for those who still want to use spreadsheets. Okay. So just like we have with MTD for VAT for a period of time, if you're comfortable with spreadsheets, all you need to do is get some bridging software in place, and then it's simple according to the revenue. I don't know whether you saw my comment, but they estimate the ongoing annual extra cost per business at £35 a year for this.
Okay,
that's not even going to cover the software cost. I don't know where they got their figures from. Yeah, but that's ridiculous.
Yeah, no, it is, and I think that's speaking to Keith at the beginning about this as well. I think the opportunity we've got at the moment is, luckily, the revenue haven't told many people about this at all, other than us as accountants. They've got quite a lot of resources and a lot of things that you can go and find, but lots of business owners don't know to go and find it yet. So I think what we need to do, and what we potentially can take a little bit of an advantage of at the moment, is that we can tell them how much this is going to cost and what our solution is, rather than, if we wait too long, there's going to be Hector's going to be on the telly and he's going to be telling people it'll only cost you another £35 or whatever it is. So we need to beat Hector. That'll be my one of my closing messages, I think, from today, is that if we can beat Hector on all this stuff, share the message we want to share it in the way we want to share it, I think we can then, we won't get every client. Not every client will say yes, but not every client says yes now, I suppose, with a lot of the services that we offer. And I think we're going to really have to think about, if clients decide to do this on their own and don't want us to be involved, from a regulatory point of view, thinking about things like AML and everything else that comes alongside that, is that then something where we potentially, don't want to continue that engagement anyway at that point? That might be something to consider. Do we actually just want to do an annual submission or not? If you'll know your clients better than me, but I know there would have been certain clients in the past I've dealt with that I wouldn't necessarily have wanted them to do their own submission, because that they'll include certain things that perhaps might not be correct. So you've got that headache at the end of the year to try and unpick that, which may or may not cause challenges and issues at that point. So that's again my 2 pence work is get rid of potentially use this as an opportunity to get rid of the problems and concentrate on the good clients that are going to want our help and advice through this process going forwards.
Yeah, and there's always the opportunity to preach again on the benefits of having up-to-date financial information, so that your decision making can be better. You talk about clients you don't want. I once had a potential client introduced to me by an IFA who used to mitigate the income tax on his rental profits by buying another property every couple of years and setting the whole of the cost of the next residential let against his income. Surprisingly, when I pointed that out to him, he didn't engage me for some reason.
yeah, definitely. There's certain tax advice. I think there's a point there about the man in the pub, the mate in the pub.
Yeah.
That they're far more tax efficient sometimes than we are, but that's obviously because we're doing it in the right way rather than in the wrong way. But I think in a way, you know, if you've got 100 clients that you do tax returns for at the moment, or 50 clients or 1,000 clients, whatever that figure is, in all honesty, we probably couldn't take on 1,000 clients and do the bookkeeping and the submissions and everything else. Same way as probably with all of our limited company business clients, we probably, even though we might want them to, if they did all come to us all at once and say, we want you to do the bookkeeping, the VAT returns, the management accounts and everything else, we would have to put a structure and a process in place to even think about whether we could do that without letting our service standards across the board drop. So I think for me, it's just making sure that if MTD for ITSA is the service you want to provide, that you provide it in the way you want to provide it to the clients you want to provide it to, who are happy then and willing to pay you for the advice and the support that they're getting from you. Don't do it the other way around. Don't feel obliged, which I think often we do as accountants. We feel obliged that we have to help. You know, don't be that person that causes more of the headache for you and the sleepless nights for you as a result of that, rather than the client that may choose to do this themselves. Okay, so we're just coming up to the end of the session. So really thank you for everyone that's joined today and commented and put posts in the chat. Thanks for those people that have done that. Hopefully that's been useful for everyone today. Please visit that resource that's in System Builder. Please download the tax calc brochure and work through that. And if you just look at effectively categorizing or segmenting your client base, even if that's the only thing that you do after today's session, just try and appreciate and understand from that process what this will mean for you and your business, what potential extra workload it's going to cost. And then you can put together a solution and a strategy for the best way that you can then deliver it for those clients that you want to deliver it for going forwards. Because I think otherwise you may think it's maybe a bigger problem than it is, or actually you might think it's a smaller problem, and actually it might turn out to be perhaps a little bit more involved than you might have initially thought. Look at the other solution providers. Look at the previous webinar where we had that demonstration from Hammock. Speak to other members. Obviously, Keith's mentioned that he uses it. You know, if you do want to reach out to anyone that within the network, I'm sure we're here to help each other. But yeah, please just ask us obviously at ABN if there's any questions you've got from our side. I'm more than happy to try and provide as much support and resources that we can that's going to help you deal with MTD for ITSA, but also just help your clients and grow your businesses.
That's brilliant. Thanks very much, Alan. I'm going to end the session now, unless there's any more questions anybody's got. If not, we'll end it now, and the recording will be on the ABN YouTube channel and also in the Know-How Hub, hopefully later on today, if not tomorrow. Okay, thanks everybody. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks everyone. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye.